to the new episode. And in this episode, we are speaking about building AI stack on Base. And I have some special guests with me who have been building on Base. We have Chris from ICN, we have Marwan from Nation, and I represent Sferon. And all of us have been building on top of Base. Now, this very question arises for builders around the world, like who are following the ethos of on chain. Why you guys are building on Base? That's question number one for both of the speakers. And what do you really see in comparison? Because I think this is the biggest elephant in the room right now. And let's start with that itself. What did you really see? Like, okay, was it the other AI applications on top of Base which made you do that, or was it your own uh, capabilities and limitations of your own tech that made you come to Base, or there was something else? So yeah, and it's an open space, so anybody can jump in and answer that.
Yeah, happy to maybe take a first step at it. The first one is really the tooling. So the tooling is very important. Like there's history in tooling. So we are a team of EVM builders. That's the first thing. And when you look at the agentic tooling and the agentic narrative, to be honest, there is two ecosystems. One of them is Base and the other one is Solana. And so if you have like an EVM strong team, then Solana is a little bit out of the door. But then you look at the tooling. So when you look at things like agent wallets, you look at other ecosystems you can integrate with, on-chain interactions that you can do with your agents. That's where Base compared to other EVM chains kind of like stood up. And agents will be doing a lot of things like in terms of volume on chain as well. So the cost of transaction is very important. Of course, like you can build on Ethereum, but that's just like not good as well. So that's really where we selected Base. Um, there is importance of also ecosystem and community, whereby you see a lot of other leading projects building on Base already. And so there is kind of a cross-pollination of users, whereby you have virtuals leading the space in there. Like there is a lot of people interested in virtuals in the agent space. So if you can offer like complementing services or things that they can do more, that's a very easy jump for them. That was really the no-brainer decision for us. I think we literally discussed it for 2 days, and then we just jumped on Base.
What about
Yeah, I
Marwan?
think we had a similar thing actually. I think a lot of our background also comes from EVM, but I think the strength of Base is like manifold for us, right? So for ICN, I'd see ourselves more as an infrastructure layer. We want to enable agentic use cases just kind of by changing the way that the infra in terms of data flow happens, so that there's, let's say, a bit more open space to enable these kinds of use cases. For us, when you look at Base, it's built on OP. This kind of super chain stack, I think, is a good ecosystem play to make sure that there's good interconnection. Also, Base is one of the, let's say it's our home base chain. It's not necessarily one that we want to stick to. I think it's a good choice for us, right? We're launching soon. We haven't launched yet. We're building decentralized cloud to support these kinds of use cases, and I think with infra projects like us, Base provides kind of a really solid foundation for that. When we're also looking to kind of create a network that houses both Web 2 and Web 3 projects, I think Base is a good solution for bridging that. So they have really good on-ramp, off-ramp facilities, the good liquidity. I think it just makes it easier for the experience to be a bit more like broadly unified between both worlds.
But when we look things from a more of an architectural level, do you think Base solves a lot of problem for, like, because I think Marwan Nation is building on more on application layer, and ICN is focused on the data layer itself. So do you think that, like, does it happen to be that there are so many microtransaction involved on the agentic side? That's why Base has been chosen as a specific uh, chain, or there are some other things in this part as well? Because as a decision maker, like, because so if you haven't chosen Solana, right? So that makes it two-way, right? You didn't have much of Rust experience, your team didn't have much of Rust experience per se, and that is a whole another ball game. Like, Solana's community is pretty different from what even EVM community has been. Like, they're tightly knit, but there are some good and bad factors, and similarly for Base as well, there are some good and bad factors. So what do you think on the application layer? What are some factors which really played in point? Okay, this is something I want to do for my payments. This is something I want to do on the on the finalization point, and this is something I want to like. It helps me in my some sort of trilemma. So, what decisions did you take from the architecture perspective?
Um, One thing actually that made the decision easier is that realization that agents don't necessarily exist 100% on chain. So that actually dissociates a little bit of the risk as well. Like when we look at agentic forces or agentic workforce, like things we're building on Nation, these are actually knowledge workers. These are agents who will go and get information from different sources, get it all the time. So that frequency of getting information, being able to act on it, all of it is off chain. So to be honest, like choosing like Base or Solana is not a limiting choice. It's not like, okay, well, my agents can only be aware of this ecosystem. There is a lot of MCP servers, APIs that you can use to get information from everywhere. Then it comes to the agents acting on that information, and that's where, like for example, the CDP wallet from Coinbase is a very good tool for agents to use. So we evaluated a few core infrastructure. We wanted our agents to have a wallet to be able to transact on chain. So there was the CDP from Coinbase. There was Crossmint. They have a wallet that is also like agentic optimized. And there is another one. The name escapes me. But there was actually three choices we were selecting from. All of them were kind of like EVM strong, and they had the possibility to also do on Solana. So right now, the Coinbase CDP can have like a CDP Solana parameter, whereby the agent has both the EVM and the Solana wallet. So again, that aspect of agents, which is different from normal dApps, traditional dApps. Traditional dApps are limited to a chain, and then you have to think about the cross-chain and how do I open the ecosystem. Those problems don't exist with agents. You literally have an agent that is, 60% off chain, and then it has a wallet, and that wallet, if you use a mature infrastructure, it can be EVM, SVM, and other ecosystems as well. So yeah, Base was an easy choice from an infrastructure point of view because of that starting point, without limitation of where you can go, and you can then go into the ecosystems that you think are going to be beneficial to your project.
Interesting. And Chris, what about ICN?
To be honest, yeah, I think Marouane took a lot of the words out of my mouth. I mean, for us as well, we see it as like, let's say, a coordination layer. At some point, yes, these agents do live off chain. Ideally, they're as autonomous as possible, and they can't be, active on the blockchain, but they can interact with it. As the infra enabler for this kind of use case, where's the settlement layer for everything, right? So where do the agents ultimately interact, and where does payments and transaction flow happen? And where do you kind of verify kind of what's happening, who owns what? We see Base as that coordination layer, not just for the agentic stuff, but actually more core to our protocol in terms of like, as an infrastructure project, where might you be running this? How do you identify your agent, and where do the kind of flows happen? So for us, Base being, for us, is a very secure layer, and we want it to be kind of this non-repudiable system of transparency where you can always go and see, okay, what's happening, where does value accrual happen, and where do those value transfers occur. So for us, it's really just about a transparent coordination, and I think Base is a really solid foundation for that.
But like in terms of other, because something I want my audience and everybody to understand, like what ICN is trying to solve in this scenario is mostly around decentralized storage, if I am right. And this segment is mostly dependent on multiple things, like does the asset lives on chain, like and if it does lives on chain, like how is it a cost effective way to put it on chain? Because there are many solutions which are out there, like for hot and cold storage, and everybody is trying to like I think Aptos Labs just recently released Shelby, and then Sui has Walrus, and all of these things which already exist in the market for hot and cold storage. So now, what do you think is the overall, and the Filecoin and Arweave ecosystem have been there for quite some time now, right? So this really proves the point. Like, is it something which really helps you to rekindle the wheel of data storage completely, or do you think you're doing something which is similar yet more effective than anybody else in the market right now? Like, what's the biggest moat of ICN in all of this?
Yeah, I mean, maybe let's kind of step back a bit because I think data storage, object storage is only kind of one small slice of what ICN is trying to do. It's one important slice, but it's also just our starting point. ICN ultimately wants to rebuild an internet that is more Web3 enabled. Part of that means building a system that is supporting what we know today as internet services and products, whilst in kind of surfacing a lot of the Web3, let's say, principles that is missing from like centralized Web2 cloud. Data storage is one of them. So data gravity is very important for us, especially when you think about agentic use cases. How is your model trained on what data? If you want to do this, let's say in an automated way, you want to make, let's say you spin up your own ML models, train your own agents to do specific things for you, and you want to do that, you want to evolve. How do you configure data flows? How do you configure your training set? That needs to be authenticated and trusted. If your data set is faulty, your model will be faulty and your agent won't be able to do much. So when we think about that, we want to design an infrastructure layer that handles not just data storage, but compute as well. So like, how do you run your model? How does it make access to the data? How do you configure what types of data it has access to? And how do we do that in a decentralized way, right? So can I spin up, let's say, a node, not in AWS, but on ICN? Can I spin up something where it takes this much data in, spits out a model? Then I can use that for my agentic use cases, depending on what it is, if it's for trading, if it's for doing other things, writing applications, whatever. I think the agentic model use cases are broader than what we see today, and we want to enable an infra that can support that. So kind of broadly speaking, that's where it's at. We're starting with the data storage side first because it's probably the most important. It's all about data authenticity, data sourcing, and to some degree privacy, because a lot of that will become the value of what kind of mechanizes this agentic use case, the data on which you use to train efficient models. And I think the quality of data will affect how accurately your agent will be able to execute. Does that kind of answer the question? Or
yeah, it does. It actually makes me ask a question on this, and I think it's good that Marin is also here because he's building on the agent side. Like, what do you think agents use for real world data ingestion? Like, do you use kind of any oracles, or how does it really happen? Like, because I think Nation's core ideology is around agents itself, right? So I want to understand at what scale you guys have been ingesting real world data, and what kind of access does these agents have to that, and are there any people even on building on top of ICN who has been doing okay, these are set of people who have been utilizing ICN's end and been using that. So I'm curious to know if there is that sort of market right now.
Yeah, I think actually data is, from what I've seen in the last couple of months we've been building, I would put it maybe in 4 categories, and each one of them has their own trust assumptions, of course, and some qualities. So the agents that we have on Nation can, first of all, access data on chain. If it's on the blockchain, we think it's as true as it gets, and that's one level of data. The second part is a lot of actually what we call skill integrations to our framework. These are integration to other products. So integrated with, Cookie.fun, with Alpha for social metrics. We integrated with CoinGecko, Dex Screener, these kind of things, DeFi Llama. And here what you're doing, you're actually trusting a third party to give you a data that is reputable. And so, for instance, when we want to get volumes and TVL, I think we have 2 integrations. That is one that is DeFi Llama. The other one is Moralis. They have an API. And you could see that the data is not the same. You ask it about specific things, that is a delay and so on. But, that's a third-party trust that you can do. The other type of data that we have is, of course, the LLM itself. So when you're building an agent on Nation, you will have to select a brain. Now you select GPT, you select Grok, you select DeepSeek, Gemini. We tried some decentralized LLMs as well. They're a bit slow, but they have special training and so on. We worked with the Ray team. We integrated their LLM as well. They're building a custom LLM for trading. And so all of these also bring their own data sets and their own training knowledge, their own training knowledge that you're trusting. And the fourth type, which we added, is actually manual data. We just launched this week a kind of a website scraper. So you just, the creator of the agent can tell the whole documentation, read this whole documentation of this particular website, and this becomes your truth. This becomes your knowledge base. So that's like manual choice by the creator itself. I don't think it's easy to solve it, and so that's why I'm happy with this approach of having like different sources, on-chain, manual selection from the web, the LLM itself, what is training knowledge, as well as, of course, third-party APIs or MCPs that we can integrate with.
There is something like that really puts me into this direction of like asking in terms of are you guys using like Base Agents Kit? Like have you guys used it, utilized it, like had the experience of utilizing their agent kit?
Which agents in particular?
They Base have a agent kit, like
oh yeah. We're using that framework actually. So we have modularity, right? We learned about it in blockchain, but it's the same also in agentic frameworks. So we have our own framework called IntentKit. It's a Python framework that we have built. And what we can do with IntentKit is that we can absorb other frameworks. And so we have absorbed the agent kit from Base as part of it. So we take benefit of all the features that it has. But then we also absorb, for example, Goat from Crossmint. That also has its own features that we can use.
Yeah.
And then we can add our own other third-party LangChain, kind of libraries and so on. So to be honest, it's a good. At first, I was like, oh no, we're depending on something. But after a few weeks of working with it, I was like, hey, it brings additional functionality. So you just add it, and then you let the creator to select that modularity. It's like, all right, from AgentKit, I'm going to use this. From Goat, I'm going to use that. And from the third-party libraries, I'm going to use this. That's been working great. Good feedback so far.
Because there is some part of people don't understand is that like there is decentralized AI, and then there is on-chain AI. Now decentralized AI is not decentralized AI can not sit completely on-chain, and that's what people have to understand on a broader term, like what's agents have been doing right now. But Chris, this question is for you because your product sits in decentralized AI, right? Like what amount of modularity your ICN has in terms of what happens on chain and what doesn't happen on chain, and also the gas issue, like how you guys are handling it. Maroon, I want to know that from you as well. What are some specific things which you have included in your stack so that you're promising lesser gas than any other agent launchpad or anything that is happening on top of Base. But Chris, over to you.
Yeah, I think maybe you mentioned that we're in the decentralized AI, let's say, domain. I would say we sit as a layer slightly below it, right? So actually decentralized AI is one of the things that we enable if we can build the infra right. Going back to modularity, I think this is one of the most important things, right? Because ICN remains the kind of system we're building and the protocol we're building must remain unopinionated about what kind of things can be built. And so the modularity means that we invite projects such as Nation or other use cases to define the way that they want their agentic use cases to work based on the kind of data access and modeling that they need, right? So this is meant to unlock a level of configurability, customizability to empower the user to decide, okay, what kind of use cases do they want? As long as the base layer that we're building can support the powerful things that they want to achieve. From that perspective, it means that on chain, we're mostly just managing let's say the life cycle of how the infra supports itself. So if you want to deploy, let's say, an agent somewhere, you obviously need to pay for some resources to do that. And that's what ICN handles. But on the application side, we'll be trying to build some SDKs to allow easy integration between these specific use cases that can make use of this. When you think about decentralized AI, we also have to question what that actually means. as we know, the actual AI has to operate from somewhere, right? Can we decentralize operation of it? Maybe, but then suddenly maybe the outputs of the AI become a lot slower, less efficient. So when we think about decentralized AI, what is it really being decentralized? Is it the way we train the model? Is it the data sourcing? Is it defining the ML algorithm itself and how it learns? What are we actually decentralizing, right? Are we redistributing the rewards that an agent earns through its execution? And I think that's what we have to question, right? Because when you think about decentralization, it's primarily about redistributing something, whether it's a power dynamic, whether it's stakeholder access, whether it's voting, whether it's funds. We have to rethink that. And I think also why we think decentralizing AI is important. For us, we want to enable this. I think we do see value in it because we want to unlock the ability for AI, one, to be autonomous, but we very much see that it doesn't live on chain. It can access on chain, it can interact with on chain, but it has to exist off chain somewhere. And ICN wants to build this infrastructure to allow more autonomous AI. They can exist on themselves. Maybe they can be self-sustaining even. Let's say an AI can do Gitcoin projects, earn Bitcoin, pay for its own hosting, things like that, where it can then be a self-sustaining agent. And maybe you don't even have to manage that anymore.
But the only, I think Base has higher throughput time, but in your scenario, won't you think the best position would be to choosing something which has faster block times and like higher theoretical TPS, or is it something else like what Base is doing right now? And I'm also answering this from the compute end as well, because that is something which what Base has, it has a high real time throughput. But if you see other chains right now, like Arbitrum, they potentially have higher, faster block time speed, and also theoretically they have a higher TPS as well. So for your specific application, do you think Base made the complete sense, or there would have been other chains if you would have chosen just if not Base?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the vision is not to be Base only, right? We want to be multi-chain. We're not, let's say, a Base project. We are an infra project, but to start, we think Base had the best foundations. I think, yeah, you're right. The TPS is great, but maybe if you maximize on TPS, there are other chains out there. But we enjoy the trust assumptions of how Base operates on its L2. And I think, again, going back to kind of the bridging of use cases as an infra project, we aren't just serving the AI cases, we're serving internet use cases in general. And we are currently serving a lot of customers in the enterprise space. What that means is our infra, our hardware that we're running, it's decentralized, but it has to uphold our very stringent performance thresholds so that we kind of, let's say, diverge away from the deepened problem of scalability versus decentralization, where if you have a decentralized system, you're bound to be very unperformant and you can't scale very well. So that's one thing that we care much more about. And I think because of those, let's say, deeper requirements, Base was a much more stable system that I think we had more trust on.
And Myron, you saw that there is the whole momentum to Base was, I feel that in terms of infrastructure, Virtuals has played a great role into bringing a lot of momentum, and specifically there were a lot of agent-based token which catered to it. But in terms of somebody who's creating into agent economy, what's the long-term value do you see? And even from your project's tokenomics, how have you designed it to capture value that it has created for anybody who becomes part of the platform and utilizes it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for ICN's perspective, you have to think about what you're saying, right? Where is value really created and where is it captured? And it's easy to think about it in terms of, okay, let's run an agent that can spot money on the table. arbitrage or like opportunities on chain, primarily that value is already based on a speculative market, right? And that's kind of a lot of what most of the value transfer that you see in blockchain is just speculation, right? Tokens here, tokens there. I think we're more interested in non-token-based value creation, right? How can we deliver product? How can we support a Web3 internet where more value is created from a product and project point of view? What can we actually provide to the ecosystem that takes us to, I think, more broadly Web3 principles that kind of triggered this movement to begin with? ICN kind of, we spotted that, right, there's lots of L1s, L2s, whatever, all these projects that are aiming to decentralize something, and a lot of value was created there. But when you look at the direction it's headed in, it suffers from the same things that I think the Web2 world has suffered from. It's the level of scale and growth requires a lot of centralization. And when you look at all these projects, they are still running on Web2 cloud, AWS. Everything is actually a lot of Web3 projects where they hosted AWS. This is not by choice, by the way. Like, it's not because we want to do this, but it's because there's no alternative. And I think that's what we see. That's what we're trying to target, and we want to provide a different avenue for unlocking this. And I think when you look at that, it means a lot of that value is actually captured by AWS, GCP, like these players. I think that should be captured by the Web3 ecosystem. Otherwise, this value gets lost, right? It just bleeds out of the ecosystem. So when I think about agentic use cases, I think more in that perspective. How can we build an ecosystem that can empower this so that it's not just about trading coins? Your agent isn't just looking for opportunities to arbitrage, but maybe in the future, as it evolves, it can do more things. It can maybe write its own smart contract and deploy it. It can maybe write its own front end and deploy it. And it can itself build out a broader ecosystem for Web3.
Speaking of broader ecosystem, I think Maruan Nation sits in onto the newer side of the whole wave, which has the whole perspective, because everybody was doing infra, then people moved on to more on the application layer, and we saw like DeFi, AI, gaming, and on-chain social agents becoming more dominant in the whole ecosystem. So, what do you think is the strongest offering that your product is doing right now in the base ecosystem, and how would you think that it would accumulate more towards the addressable market in the longer run?
Yeah, it has been actually an interesting journey, which as a founder, I can summarize it in 3 steps. That also like resonates with where we see the market is going. When we first started Crestal Network, it was a purely infra problem solving. So at that point, actually, there was a lot of data challenges and data availability challenges for blockchains to scale. And so what we came in, we were saying, all right, we're going to help builders have dynamic data availability there. So it's like essentially an aggregator of different DAs. And then as we speak to more builders, we understood that their problems are a little bit bigger than just data. So they were more of like, hey, Web3 dApp building is not easy. And so at that point, we launched the first testnet that we launched was essentially kind of a modular app builder. So you come and say, I'm building a DeFi swap. What are the best building pieces? So it's like, okay, for chain, you select this. For DA, select that. For Oracle, you select this, and then assembles it together. And from that, actually, we found that it's very limited to a set of group of builders, devs in Web3, and the demand was not that big. At that point, we started seeing demand for apps, these third, fourth, whatever generation of apps, which is agentic applications. So instead of building a normal dApp on chain, actually, can I build an agent that acts as an app that solves a problem for me? And the beautiful thing with this is that these agents are not only built by devs. Of course, there was at the early stage, like, I don't know, what's his name? The Eliza guy is like, okay, hacking around with Eliza Shaw, yeah. And then it was like, everybody was like, oh, this is cool, what he's building. And there was an accessibility issues. But then in reality now, when you look outside of Web3 and even in the Web2 space, everybody wants to automate a business process or a process in their life through an agent. And this is a new paradigm compared to what we had before. Usually when you want to automate it with an app. Can I build an app to automate that? And so that's really what we saw as a massive opportunity for, of course, satisfying a market demand, for satisfying a need. And where Nation sits today, these agents, you can think about them like they are workers. Essentially, they are, smart entities that serves a specific need. So, for example, if you were to build an application to do market research and investment for you, why not an agent? If you were to build like a BD entity that goes and analyzes your competitors, your opportunities to integrate, to collaborate, that's an agent. So that's a replacement for a person. And this is the key value that we are solving. That's why actually I'm not very like these questions of like building on Base or Solana is actually important for liquidity and for traders. So something like Virtual, for example, you saw them trying on Base and then went to Solana and then came back to Base because it's really about finding the investors. And most of the investors that they go to these virtual agent token, they don't even know what the agent does, right? They don't care. It's a white paper. They don't even read it. So it's very different from where we are coming from. It's like, all right, we see a future whereby these websites like Fiverr and Upwork that have humans now doing tasks and work, there will be similar platforms in the future, and these are agents.
Yeah.
So you go to a place and say, I'm looking for the best content creator. I'm looking for the best, whatever, designer. And I'm going to just hire an agent instead of a human. So what we're building is really the forefront of that. And we just released today, actually, I was switching tabs when I was talking to you because we just did our release where now the creators can deploy these agents. These agents get paid for the work they do, and then they take a margin, so they take their profit out. So if I am a smart person, I can have small focused agents that solve small problems. I can get them deployed without coding. So that's one problem we solve. The second part is that these agents are there for people to interact with them. They're getting paid per interaction. Nothing crazy like an Upwork or a Fiverr. They're getting paid like, $1, 50 cents here, but they accumulate. And then maybe I come back after a week or two and I can withdraw, $100. So essentially I have like somebody working for me, half on chain, half off chain, and doing tasks that I have designed it for. And that's really what we're betting on. And of course, if these creators want to go and launch a token for their agents, they can, but it has nothing to do with the core value of the platform.
And do you provide any guardrails for these agents to are there any guardrails right now?
You mentioned that you wanted to see some things. Can I share my screen very quickly?
Sure. I hope it's not an SFW.
All right. I'm gonna just.
It's probably an agent.
Do you see the Nation page?
Yeah.
Can you show your private?
I don't have actually. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So this is the Nation app, nation.fun, because we want people actually to experiment and have fun with it. But once this stabilizes, we're going to make it nation.io. And what we do have guardrails for really here is two things, right? So first of all, there is the main page where we have some agents that are verified. And the main question is like, how did they get to this main page? To be honest, like these 5, I built them. Like if you see here, my information, like I'm the one who deployed these agents. But what we have just released today is the ability for agents actually from, so anybody can come and either start with a prompt to create an agent, or they can go to an advanced mode, which is really not advanced. It's just like filling text. So I'll show you maybe some examples of some agents we have.
How beautifully you have followed the Fallout.
I'm committed. It's the best game. Yeah. It's the best game in the world.
Amazing. It's so good to see that there is an actual product which shows a great Fallout design aesthetic.
It's really, you come to the workbench and you create what we call an Outlander. So this is an agent just for yourself.
Yeah.
Like nobody can see it. It's just working for you doing something. If you think that the idea is cool and somebody else can use it, you simply click a button and it goes to the trenches. So it becomes a trencher. And what I'm showing you here is one of the trenchers. It's a very simple idea. It's an agent that you tell it your dream and it just explains the dream. You pay it a small fee, like you paid like 10 cents or whatnot. Now, this particular agent here is in the trenches where it has now thousands of agents. It's hard to stand out, right? I don't know what to find here. So the criteria for me to stand out and go to the Nation is 3 steps, and this is what we have just released. First of all, actually, it's an economic criteria. So if you have accumulated enough revenue, so you see here on my agent, we have revenue to 2,000 caps. It's like a stable coin in a way. So 2K caps is like $2. So this agent made $2 in revenue. It's not much. So the first criteria is actually make $1 million, which means make $1,000. And this is an economic gate. If there is people enough out there that paid you $1,000 in agent fee, maybe you're onto something, right? You're onto something there. The second part is obviously having like a clean introduction. So because these are chat based right now, so it could be a little bit messy for people to come and say, what am I going to do? So very simple. Have your your agent introduced. Quick actions. There is a bunch of quick actions that we support, and that you just have to guide the user essentially. And then the third part is agree to docs yourself, right? And so there is a small button that you tick in your profile. This is very important, to be honest. Like you're going out there and giving a service to somebody. They will have maybe support questions. They might collaborate. They want to actually expand a few things. And so, select any kind of medium. It can be your Twitter, your Telegram, whatever it is, your email, and just to tick a box, right? And once you have this, now your agent, you can see what it does. You can contact the creator, so I know it. And there was enough economic activity and revenue that is made for the agent to go and and make it to kind of the homepage. The second step is really just like kind of a verified check mark. I think for this one, we'll just hold maybe demo days on a weekly basis. So have the creator to come and really show what they build, explain the goal, the journey, and yeah, gets you a small tick mark. But the main idea is that you create agents, people use them and they pay them. We have the cap system, which is like in the app currency. Maybe you create a cool agent that you want to let people to copy it. So these are templates, right? So a lot of people see this guy. It's pretty radical on Twitter, doing a bunch of things. It has like a huge library of skills. You can see here like social, on-chain. It has the Coinbase. It can withdraw. It can trade. It can do a bunch of things. So they're like, oh, I like the design of this one. Well, you like the design, copy the agent and pay the creator a fee. So that goes into the revenue, right? So that's the economy that we want to create. This is where I have an idea. I come to like a simple, either through one prompt or I just go and say, all right, so what kind of LLM is good for this one? Let me try different ones. What kind of skills can I add to this agent? Like I have a library that I can activate. So, hey, I want the AI XPT Intel, right? So I'm going to switch this on and have AI XPT Intel flowing into my agent, right? So these are builder capabilities. And once you have built your idea, you just put it out there, get enough revenue, be serious about it, and you'll be able to just withdraw. Like this agent has made $200. I can't wait for this button to be clickable with the agent profit. So this hopefully next week will activate it. So if your agent is serious, you'll be able to literally just make money out of it. You set it out there, it works, and you make money out of it.
I think this really brings me to the last call I had with you. Like pretty interesting in terms of, I can see a lot of possibility that can happen from Skynet. Like, guys, I got excited and I'm gonna show you my screen as well before you started this. So let me show you what we have been cooking on the Skynet's end, and so it's my team is gonna kill me like because I wasn't allowed.
It's an announcement before announcement, so it's
yeah, they're like, I hope they just don't watch this part. But I'm like super excited to show everyone what we have been doing, and
I'm gonna retweet and say great demo of Skynet.
So this is what we have been doing, and I can see, like, for example, if somebody creates an agent that publishes directly on Nation and other platforms, like similarly, which utilize a different type of tools library, like I want to go ahead, like, Prashant has created his own BD Pokemon, which goes ahead and gets all the Telegram messages and gives him a report of that. And there are so many flows that I personally am doing right now, and I'm testing it out as well. So like there is something which is very famous right now, to get something from Farcaster, connect it, and use the LLM to provide that, and then you give like simply just put onto the part where you can choose the model which you want to use, give the API key, and get the system prompt in, and just deploy that agent. That's it. And you can just go ahead and publish it, and people can go ahead and duplicate, like similarly as you showed. Like if you like the agent, you can copy it. So now imagine like a tool like Skynet allows people to go ahead and deploy agents on top of Nation. And what I can do right now is that, like, I don't know, Chris, what is the stage right now, but if you have an MCP, and if I want to go ahead and store something on ICN side, I can go ahead and put it in the tool library and do that. So imagine the possibility of creation that can happen on this point of time, like in terms of accessibility to be provided to people, like pretty easy, pretty solid and straightforward in terms of provide, like how easily you can build an agent and deploy it. But yeah, I really want to see your part as well. Well, Chris, I got excited to show what we have been doing with Skynet. So I got ahead of the
No, thank you.
And I showed it, but we wanna see yours too, like what you have been cooking.
Yeah, sure. I mean, embarrassingly, you guys have just outshone, I think, what we have. We're still in building, so I can't show a product per se. But what I can show you is...
Good news, Chris, is that not many people will see our demos. So it's okay. You can. This is a trial. Like what I showed you, we just released it, and I haven't even got the time to test it, so it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, your guys' stuff looks amazing, right? And I think it sets a good foundation for what I think ICN is aiming to enable. Because, again, let me share exactly what we have. I'll show you an architecture just to kind of illustrate what we're doing here. ICN is working on, I think, like many different layers, and so there's a lot that needs to be developed, and we're starting again with the data modeling side or the data storage side. But I want to kind of contextualize this with what you guys have shown, right? So first, maybe Nation, right? You guys, the way that I see it is, let's think about the application and service layer that we have here, right? That's, I think, where a lot of this will exist. The agentic use cases. Here, I've called it generative AI. But essentially, these application layer products are all at this top layer. ICN is basically everything underneath, and kind of I'll get to this. Thinking about that, how do we make it so that these systems that we try to build are as modular as possible? So like you just shown from Skynet, right? If you can plug one model into another, you source the data, you also give it individual prompts, and then you deploy it. How is that being deployed? ICN would like to see it as maybe these agents themselves aren't restricted in exactly the pipe and the prompts that you give it. Maybe it exists. You deploy it as a standalone agent, and what you can configure is how it interacts with the outer world, the interface around it. Maybe the prompt evolves. Similarly with Nation on Marion's side, if I copy your agent, how is that being deployed? Ideally, ICN would be able to spin up a very small container, a very small instance, like a house for the agent that kind of persists. And you can configure the interface and how that interacts, what it's visible to, what kind of data source is on the input, what kind of comes out, but also maybe community of agents. Maybe I have 3 instances deployed. How do they collaborate? Maybe I can create AI communities where each model or each prompt creates a personality, but I can combine them so that they work together to create a unified outcome. This only really exists if we can, let's say, persist a way for this to be deployable and instantiated in a more, let's say, permanent way. So let's say instead of it just being deployed on Skynet or just being deployed on Nation, that these are more like processes that deploy specific configurations of your agent into an ICN, let's say, module. And that can be controlled by you or the user, and that can kind of always persist. And I think that's the way that we envision, let's say, the more decentralized angle, because maybe it goes beyond just copying an agent because you like it. Maybe it's a community-controlled or community-owned agent that can evolve over time. A lot of what we work in is around permanence, around configurability, modularity. So again, AI is just one of those use cases, but it's important because we need to envision how it interacts with other services and systems. So how do we define those data paths? Maybe it shouldn't be just, let's say, like you mentioned, Myron, like, oh, I get a data source from CoinList or I get a data source from whatever. Maybe it can plug directly to certain messaging protocols even. Let's say it's not a blockchain, but it's a different kind of Web3 protocol that kind of manages things differently. How do we plug that? How do we plug it into more, let's say, human-centric identity system where you're managing personal identifiable information? It's a personal agent, right? It's a personal assistant, maybe. And I like to think about it in combination with intent protocols. I think intents have been kind of one of these things that have popped up in the recent years, still in development, but intents I think have a good overlap with AI, with AI agents. So ICN wants to build that kind of foundation. It's built on top of a hardware network.
So many decentralized nodes, like how would it manage the latency issue that happens on the, like, for example, if I'm using any kind of pipeline or to provide an output of, like, there are multiple hardware which is sitting in different parts of the world. How would I ensure that the output from all of these machines is, because it can like, for example, it can ruin the whole inference if one of my nodes fails, or there is like that's one of the biggest issues with decentralized infra. So how you guys are maintaining that?
Good question. So yeah, the modularity aspect leads into making it, let's say, user configurable. And I think a lot of these requirements around latency, which is basically centered around location, are also connected with the use case. So, what kind of needs do you have? How close to the data do you need to be? Is your model really only running for a short amount of time? It does its job and it spins down. Does it need to exist very close to a data lake, right? And I think we can configure it so that, okay, if you have a permanent agent, maybe there's a preferable place where you'd like it to live, maybe in Europe somewhere, maybe in Asia somewhere. Or if it's an ephemeral process, it could be something that spins up when it's needed and then spins down when it's not. And with this model, it's a lot more dynamic, right? If suddenly I need to access something in the US, you can spin up an instance of that runs and then it spins down. Again, it depends on the use case, but here, that location thing can be configured to be, where's the, what compute resource are you running on? What kind of speeds do you need for the use case or for the job it needs to do at that time? Is there any data requirements there? Does it need to therefore be close to that data? And therefore it's driven by where that data is sourced. So you put it next to the data lake. Again, I think with a lot of these use cases, the interface to the user doesn't matter as much, right? It's more interfacing with the processing components of what the job it's doing. But once it finishes its job, I think kind of locality to the user doesn't matter as much, and it's more about locality of what it's doing. And we want to make that as configurable as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's something like that comes on because like I asked that question on more of my natural obedience towards building compute and being into this space, and we understand like decentralization is not an easy job to honestly to maintain. Like we have seen like there are things sitting on chain and there are things sitting off chain as well, and I completely understand the the challenges of making things like making things off chain and on chain at the same time. But there is this final question that I have, and I I wanted it for everybody who would be listening to this and referencing to this in terms of a conclusion of this stream is, and I'm really curious on both end, like what is that one thing you wanna give an advice for anybody who starts building into the space and has a decision to choose a chain, and what kind of models, what kind of economic models, what kind of things they need to focus on while doing that, like just not utilizing base, like what are some things that they need to keep in mind uh, while taking that decision, like because that can actually hinder the trajectory of where they are going to be in next few years. So over to you guys on this. I'm not going to answer this one.
I'm gonna do a hot take on this one. Whatever you're building, if you cannot make it successful on this one chain, which is called AWS, then then probably it doesn't matter so much. And choosing Base or Solana is purely for the mimetic, for the community, of course, for the tribal thing, which is fun. It's really fun to build in that, especially if you're Web3 and into that. But generally speaking, to be honest, that's the lesson that we have learned, which is PMF is the first thing, like what kind of problem you're solving. And if your justification to that problem solving is that, hey, I'm solving that problem because I'm building on Base, I doubt that's the right approach, right? So I would approach it top down, which is, okay, what's the problem? What's my unique solution to it? And for me, what is the fastest tools that will allow me to reach that unique solution maturity, right? And if Base is giving you the tools, the ecosystem, the support, then so be it. If Solana it is, then so be it. That's really one thing that many people, of course, in Web3, they don't like to hear. But generally speaking, it's a PMF. It's a top down, right? What is you building? What problem you solving? And which chain or ecosystem gives you the better technology support? And maybe some grant support. Base doesn't give grants, but as far as I know. But yeah, so that's really the advice that I give. But it's okay also to start from an ecosystem. So if you like a particular community, a particular apps, like, hey, I like how Virtual's ecosystem is. So I'm going to start from there and complement on it. And because I started there, it happens that I have to start on Base. But then really you're going through that journey to discovering, like, what pieces do I need? Where are those pieces? What other partners do I need to work with and be ready to expand? I think we established that the future is multi-chain anyway. So I'm not very strict on that rule.
Understood. Okay. This doesn't apply for us, the AWS thing, like it applies for people who are building on application layer. But guess what? We chose a harder problem. But yeah, Chris, what about you?
I mean, we're the same. I think exactly. I would echo exactly what Marwin said. I think for us as well, we thought about product market fit because when you think about infra projects, it's adoption is really important, right? You don't really want to change the status quo because you're asking everyone to do business differently if you do that. And that's not possible, right? Everything runs on Rails today. What we can offer is an improvement on how things exist today. And that's kind of what we do. We're not trying to say, okay, well, let's change everything. There's no point. And I would do the same, right? What kind of value is your project offering? What can it build on today? And pick the right ecosystem for that. And I think we did the same with Base. We think it offers us features that we like. And we start there. Again, we want to be multi-chain one day, and this is just the first step. But we took that step with kind of our roadmap in mind. And I would encourage everyone to do the same.
That's amazing. Can I do a small flex, guys? Like
Of course.
Are you hosting us? Are you hosting us here? I think so. Go for it.
So we just made this is our Dune dashboard, and this shows like what we have been doing on top of Base, and our annual recurring revenue just crossed like 5 mil. And again, for Web3 folks, ARR is annual recurring revenue. Most companies try to do that in Web2, and we have crossed like 6.7k GPUs, and it's only the chart is up only, and we have been pretty the team has been pretty crazy on top of that. Like you can see, Fizz node is going crazy. Like people like retail grade GPUs getting connected on top of it is insane, and the deployments are crossing by the day, and people have specifically our users are increasing by the day, and we have been focused on the complete flywheel, like as you guys said, and which is pretty true. Like which for us to identify that this is these are our customers, and we are going to focus on these, like primarily off chain, on chain, or off chain, whatever happens, and gonna make sure that we scale on that. And that's what the whole ideology has been with Spheron as well. And eventually, like I will be happy to work with ICN and Nation in the coming time. Like this is how we bring our customers on stream and give them the contract, so so that they don't jump off. I'm just kidding, but yeah, this is a good way of bringing people and saying, yeah, we are going to use you. So yeah, pretty amazing. So for this next 1 minute, this is more of a shell time. We crossed the 45-minute mark. So this is more of a shell time where you can go ahead and tell people what you're building about, and there is something you need to keep an eye on. And yeah, so yeah, Marvin, you can start, Chris, and then I'll tell myself about this.
Sure. So actually, we wanted to bring the agents to the masses. So I think Nation has reached like a very good stage of progress and development. We've been building in the open since day one, so it's like it's not a big release. We do a release every week, and we're really getting to a stage where now, if you're an individual curious about agents, you can come and follow small steps, deploy your first agent just for yourself, do a few things with it. But also, if you want to extend it as a business and like a digital worker, you can do that. So that's nice and fun. What we are working on right now with a few clients is more actually enterprise agents. So this is specific use cases we have identified. Each company needs a social intern. Each company needs a researcher. Each company needs like a BD individual that analyzes their kind of target clients, engage with them, get that first engagement. Knowledge workers for support. All of these actually kind of agents that require enterprise skills. So it's not so much like connect to DEX screener or trade on a DEX, but it's mostly, can I connect to your Gmail and get that information? Can I integrate to your app like as a chat window? Those popular pop-up thing, the chatbots, but instead of a chatbot, it's an agent. So all of these actually are in demand areas, and they have been explored in a few ways. And so that's really the next big journey step for us. And we're getting great traction with it, and hopefully we can showcase some of these, not fun agents. It's more of like serious agents.
Serious agents.
Correct. Nation.notfun. That's our next app.
Over to you, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of words. So ICN, we're trying to build the future of the Web3 internet, right? And we want to build a new foundational layer to support the next generation of the internet. Decentralized agentic AI, I think, is one of the more exciting verticals that we want to enable. And we're doing a TGE mainnet launch very, very soon. I think there'll also be some announcements coming soon. We're launching our V1. What that means is we're starting from the base infra. We have our hardware network ready to come online. These are decentralized hardware providers in data centers across the world. These guys are supporting first our push on the data storage side. And we want to enable this first. I think the next stage we'll be looking at is compute, so GPU, and properly enabling this kind of roadmap towards what we're looking at. But I encourage everyone to keep an eye out for our announcement. It's coming very soon, very, very soon. And yeah, we'd love some engagement there. So as a user, you can come and stake and help secure our hardware network and verify our hardware nodes. It's a community project, so again, we commit to decentralization. So again, community is very important. Please take a look. Thank you.
Amazing. And for Spheron, we are building world's biggest community-powered data center and making compute more accessible and permissionless for anyone around the world. And our core thesis is that compute should be affordable to anybody at any point from anywhere they want to access it. So that's what we have been behind, and we are very positive. We have been doing some amazing things around compute, and yeah, like we are coming up with products like Supernodus, Skynet, and Clippy. Oh, guys, I forgot to show you something. I'm gonna save it to the next stream, but I'm gonna send it to you. People are going crazy on the text to video thing which we have done. Like they are going ballistics on that. But yeah, we have been creating things like on the application layer, which people love and like, and also getting some amazing guests on our streams. So thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Marin, for joining us. Till next episode. Have a good one, guys.